In the busy town of Mbeere, where music and laughter filled the streets, Adana lived quietly in her parents' house. She was the kind of daughter who woke up early to sweep the compound, cook meals, and help with small jobs just to keep the family comfortable. Yet no matter how much she tried, her parents and siblings never really saw her. They treated her like a shadow, someone who was there to serve but never to belong. Many nights she sat by the small window in her room, watching the stars and wondering why her own family made her feel like a stranger. When talk of a family holiday to Zanzibar began, Adana's heart filled with hope. She thought, maybe this time they will take me along. Maybe this time I will laugh with them, take pictures, and feel like part of the family. She listened as her siblings excitedly planned what to wear, what beaches they would visit, and what gifts they would buy. But no one asked her what she wanted. No one even mentioned her name. Days before the trip, her mother made it clear. Adana, you will not be going. Stay here and look after the house. Those words cut deeper than any knife. Adana smiled faintly to hide the pain, but when she was alone, her eyes filled with tears. She longed to feel love, to be chosen, but once again she was left behind. The holiday was for everyone else, except her. The morning of the trip came faster than Adana expected. She woke up early like she always did, and prepared breakfast for everyone. She set the table with care, even though her heart was heavy. Her siblings came downstairs, laughing and dragging their suitcases, showing off their new clothes and sunglasses. They didn't even look at her. To them, she was just the girl who would keep the house clean while they enjoyed life. Adana stood quietly at the corner, watching. She wanted to say something, anything, but her voice felt trapped in her throat. Her father checked the tickets while her mother rushed everyone to the car. The air was filled with excitement, but for Adana, it was filled with pain. She thought, maybe someone will change their mind. Maybe they will turn to me and say, "Come along, Adana." But that moment never came. As they carried their bags to the car, her mother looked back at her and said the words that shattered her completely. "Stay home and look after the house. This trip is for people who bring pride, not burdens." The sentence struck her like a slap. For years she had swallowed their hurtful words, but this one broke her. She forced a small nod, pretending to be strong, but her heart was bleeding inside. Her siblings giggled in the car, shouting about beaches and shopping as the engine started. Her father honked the horn, and the car rolled out of the compound. Through the dust rising behind the tires, Adana stood frozen, watching her own family leave her behind as if she meant nothing. She waved, not because they deserved it, but because her heart still longed for them to see her. They didn't wave back. They didn't even look at her. The moment the gate closed, silence fell. The house that had been full of noise seconds ago suddenly felt like a prison. Adana walked back inside, her legs weak. She sat on the edge of her bed and finally let the tears flow. Every memory of being ignored, every harsh word, every moment of being invisible came rushing back to her. She covered her face with her hands and sobbed until her chest ached. But as the hours passed, something inside her shifted. She realized she had begged for their love too many times. She had given her best, and still, it was never enough for them. Sitting in that lonely room, with nothing but the sound of her own heartbeat, Adana whispered to herself, "No more. I will not beg anymore." Her tears slowly dried. The pain was still there, but beneath it, a new strength was forming. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing. She would rise above this cruelty. They might have left her behind, but life was not done with her yet. And for the first time, Adana promised herself she would not let their rejection define her. The days after her family left felt like a lifetime to Adana. The house was too quiet, the walls too empty. She went about her chores in silence, cooking small meals for herself, sweeping the compound, and sitting by the window at night. Sometimes she looked at the family photos on the wall, the ones where she always stood at the far corner, almost invisible. The pain of being left behind still pressed heavily on her heart. One hot afternoon, as she was watering the small plants near the gate, she heard a knock. A young delivery boy handed her an envelope with her name neatly written on it. Surprised, she took it with trembling hands. Hardly anyone ever sent her letters. She sat down on the wooden bench outside and carefully tore it open. Her eyes widened as she read. It was from Lawyer Ease, a respected man in town. The letter said that her late grandfather had left behind some documents in her name, and that she should come to his office immediately. For a moment she thought it must be a mistake. Her grandfather had passed away years ago, and in the family nobody ever spoke kindly of him. They always said he was old-fashioned, a burden, someone better forgotten. Even Adana, though she had loved his gentle presence, never really knew the truth about what he left behind. Her hands shook as she read the letter again and again, making sure her eyes weren't deceiving her. "Why me?" she whispered. She remembered her grandfather's warm smile, the way he used to call her, "my quiet star." He was the only one who sometimes noticed when she was sad. But still, documents. In her name. What could that even mean? That night, sleep refused to come. She kept imagining what the lawyer might say. Fear and hope wrestled inside her. A small voice whispered that maybe this was her chance. Maybe life was finally turning toward her. Another voice warned her not to expect too much, because disappointment had followed her all her life. The next morning, Adana dressed in her cleanest clothes, a simple blue dress that had faded from too many washes. She wrapped her hair neatly and walked to the bus stop, holding the letter close to her chest. The ride to the lawyer's office felt longer than usual. Every bump on the road made her heart jump. When she finally reached the office, her legs felt heavy, but she forced herself to climb the stairs. The receptionist smiled kindly and led her to Lawyer Ease's office. As she stepped inside, she saw the tall shelves filled with books, the smell of paper and ink filling the air. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought he might hear it. Lawyer Ease, a calm man with gray hair, looked up and gave her a reassuring smile. "Adana," he said gently, "I have been waiting for you." Her breath caught in her throat. She clutched the letter tightly in her hands. Whatever he was about to say, she knew her life was about to change forever. Adana sat nervously across from Lawyer Ease, her hands twisting the edge of the letter she had brought with her. The office was quiet, filled only with the sound of a ceiling fan slowly turning above. She felt so small in that chair, her heart beating so fast it almost drowned out the silence. Lawyer Ease adjusted his glasses, opened a brown file on his desk, and looked at her with calm, serious eyes. "Adana," he began softly, "your grandfather was a wise man. He may not have spoken much, but he saw everything. He saw how your parents and siblings treated you. He saw how they pushed you aside, how they made you feel invisible. He often told me that you were the only one who had a kind heart." Adana's eyes stung with tears. She remembered her grandfather sitting quietly in the corner of the compound years ago, watching her sweep the yard or bring him water. She never knew that those small acts of kindness had left such a mark on him. Lawyer Ease continued, sliding a set of documents across the table. "Before he passed away, your grandfather made a decision in secret. He wrote a will, and in that will, he named you his sole heir. Everything he owned, his estate, his farmland, and even his shares in a trading company, now belongs to you. That includes the very house your family is living in right now." Adana's mouth fell open, but no words came out. She touched the papers as if they might vanish. The house. The same house where her parents mocked her. The same house she was left behind in while her family went on holiday. She couldn't believe it. I don't understand," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Why me?" "Because he trusted you," the lawyer replied. "He believed you would use it wisely. He knew the others only cared about showing off and chasing comfort. But you, he said you had the strength to endure pain quietly and still carry love in your heart." Tears rolled down Adana's cheeks. For years she had been made to feel like she was nothing. And yet, here she was, being told she was the one chosen to carry her grandfather's legacy. The silence she had endured, the loneliness, the humiliation, it was all about to turn into something powerful. She pressed the papers against her chest, trembling. Her whole body felt light and heavy at the same time. She thought about her family, still laughing somewhere on the beaches of Zanzibar, never imagining that the world they thought they owned was slipping from their hands. For the first time in her life, Adana felt something she had never felt before. Power. Quiet, steady, unshakable power. She didn't say much, but inside her heart whispered, "They left me behind, but now I stand ahead of them all." The day her family returned from Zanzibar, the whole neighborhood heard them before they even reached the gate. Their loud laughter, their chatter about beaches and expensive restaurants, echoed through the street. Suitcases were piled high on top of the car, souvenirs hanging from the windows, as if they wanted the whole world to know they had enjoyed themselves. Adana stood quietly at the window, watching. Her chest tightened, but this time it was not with pain, it was with a secret they did not know yet. As soon as they entered the compound, her siblings ran around showing off the gifts they had bought. They waved new clothes, sunglasses, and bags in the air, snapping pictures and tagging their friends online. One of her brothers smirked at her and said, "Too bad you missed it, Adana. You wouldn't have fit in anyway." The others laughed, shaking their heads at her. Their mother looked at her coldly and added, "You should be grateful we left you here. At least the house didn't burn down." Adana said nothing. She simply stood by the doorway, her face calm. Her silence only made them laugh louder. They thought she was sulking, that she was jealous. But soon their laughter began to fade. When they turned to push the gate closed, they noticed several papers pinned to it. Official stamps and bold letters covered the notices. Her father frowned and pulled one off the metal bars. His face drained of color as he read. This can't be real." Her mother snatched the paper from him, her eyes scanning quickly. The words struck like lightning: transfer of ownership, new legal owner, Miss Adana Okafor. Her hands trembled. She looked back at Adana, who was standing tall now, her eyes steady and unafraid. "What is this?" one of her sisters cried, grabbing another notice. "How can the house be in her name? This is our home." Adana's voice, calm but sharp, cut through the chaos. "No, it was never yours. It was grandfather's. And now it is mine." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the compound. The siblings looked at one another in shock, as if waiting for someone to say it was a joke. Their father tried to laugh, but it came out weak and hollow. You must be mistaken. This is nonsense." But deep inside they all knew it wasn't. The official seals, the lawyer's signature, the government stamp, everything was clear. Their trip to Zanzibar had been their last moment of pride, and they had no idea what awaited them at home. The neighbors began to gather outside, whispering and pointing at the notices. Word spread fast. The quiet girl they had ignored was now the owner of everything. Adana stood in the middle of the compound, her heart steady. The family who left her behind had returned to find themselves left out of their own home. For the first time, the power was no longer in their hands. It was in hers. The house that had always been filled with their voices now carried a new kind of noise, panic and disbelief. Adana sat in the living room with Lawyer Ease beside her, the inheritance papers neatly placed on the table. She was calm, almost too calm, while her parents and siblings stormed in, their voices rising like thunder. Her father slammed his hand on the table. "Adana, what kind of trick is this? How dare you claim this house? This is mine. I built this home with my sweat." His voice shook with rage, but there was fear in his eyes. Adana didn't flinch. She looked at him steadily and replied, "You didn't build it. It was never yours. This house belonged to grandfather. He only allowed you to live here. And now it belongs to me." Her mother's face twisted in disbelief. "Impossible. That old man left us with nothing. We took care of him when nobody else did." Lawyer Ease cleared his throat and opened the file. His voice was calm but firm. "Madam, with all due respect, that is not true. Your father-in-law saw everything. He saw how you treated Adana, how she was always pushed aside. He trusted her, not you. Here are the legal documents, signed and sealed. She is the rightful owner now." He slid the papers across the table for all to see. The siblings grabbed at the documents, their eyes scanning wildly, their mouths falling open in shock. One of her brothers shouted, "No, this can't be real. She's just Adana." Those words, "just Adana," hit her ears like an echo of every insult, every rejection she had endured. But this time they didn't sting. They gave her strength. She straightened her back, her voice steady. Yes, I am Adana, the same girl you left behind, the same girl you called a burden. But today, I am also the heir of everything you thought you owned. Her mother's voice cracked with desperation. Adana, you can't do this to your own family. We are your blood. Adana's eyes filled with tears, but they didn't fall. Family? She asked softly. When you left me behind, laughing as if I didn't exist, did you remember I was your family? When you called me a burden, did you remember then? Don't speak of family now, when all you see is the wealth you are about to lose. The room went quiet, except for the sound of heavy breathing. Her father tried one last time, pointing a finger at her. If you think we will leave quietly, you are mistaken. You owe us. Lawyer Isa's voice cut through the tension. She owes you nothing. And if you dare to fight her, the law will fight back. This estate is hers by right. Adana took the papers in her hands and held them close. Her voice was no longer shaking. This silence you forced on me for years, today, it speaks louder than all of you. And for the first time in her life they listened, because they had no choice. The shouting inside the house grew louder and louder until it spilled into the compound. Curious neighbors began to gather outside the gate, whispering to one another. The Okafor family had always carried themselves with pride, showing off their trips, their clothes, and their laughter as if they were better than everyone else. Now the same family was in chaos, their voices breaking with anger and fear. One of the neighbors, an elderly woman, shook her head. What is happening in there? Why are they shouting at that poor girl again? Another neighbor replied, No, something is different this time. Look at those notices on the gate. It says the house belongs to Adana now. Murmurs spread quickly, and soon a small crowd stood watching, their eyes fixed on the drama unfolding. Inside, Adana sat quietly while her siblings grew desperate. Please, Adana, one of her sisters cried, her voice shaking. We didn't mean to hurt you. We were just excited about the trip. Her brother added quickly. Yes, we were wrong, but you can't throw us out. Where will we go? Their begging was loud enough for everyone outside to hear, and the neighbors exchanged shocked glances. Adana rose slowly from her chair, her face calm but her eyes filled with pain. She looked at each of them, her parents and siblings who had laughed at her, ignored her, left her behind. Her voice carried steady and clear. Do you remember the day you packed your bags and left me standing alone at the gate? You laughed at me. You said I wasn't worthy. You excluded me from your trip. Now life has excluded you from this house. Gasps erupted from the neighbors listening outside. The words cut through the air like a knife, sharp and unforgettable. The proud Okafor family, who once looked down on everyone, now stood exposed in front of the whole community. Their arrogance had turned into shame. Her mother fell to her knees, clutching at Adana's dress. We are sorry, my daughter. Forgive us. We didn't know it would come to this. But Adana gently pulled her hand away. I begged for your love for years, and you never gave it. Today I will not beg for your respect. You will give it to me because it is no longer a choice. It is the law. The neighbors outside nodded, some even clapping quietly. One man whispered, She was the forgotten one, but now she is the one standing tall. Her father, red with humiliation, tried to bark at the neighbors to leave, but they only laughed. The mask of his pride had been torn away. Adana stood in the center of it all, holding the inheritance papers firmly in her hands. She was no longer the girl hidden in the shadows. She was the woman who owned the very ground they stood on. And in that moment, everyone understood. The tables had truly turned. The compound was heavy with silence after the shouting and the neighbors' whispers. Adana stood tall in the middle of the living room, her eyes red from tears but her voice steady. Her family, once so proud and confident, now sat scattered around the room, their faces pale with fear and humiliation. She took a deep breath, her hands still clutching the inheritance papers. I will not throw you out tonight, she said quietly, but her words carried weight. But hear me clearly, you will not live in this house as if nothing has changed. This place is mine now. If you want to stay, you will treat me with respect. No more insults. No more treating me like I am invisible. Her siblings exchanged nervous glances. None of them had ever seen her like this. calm, firm, and unshakable. Her mother opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. For the first time she looked small, powerless. Her father, however, refused to bow his head. He rose to his feet, anger flashing in his eyes. "Respect you. You think a piece of paper makes you greater than me. I am the head of this family. Don't forget who you're speaking to, Adana. If you push me, I will make you regret it." His voice was sharp, but there was a tremor in it, the sound of a man losing ground. Before Adana could answer, Lawyer Ease leaned forward, his voice cool but firm. "Mr. Okafor, I advise you to calm yourself. The law is very clear. This property belongs to Adana. Any threat against her will not only fail, it will bring legal consequences you cannot escape. She is protected now." The words landed heavily in the room. Her father's fists clenched, but his face betrayed his fear. The authority he once held over his daughter was slipping through his fingers, and there was nothing he could do. Adana's eyes softened, but her voice remained strong. "All my life you treated me like nothing. You left me behind, you mocked me, and you thought I would never rise. But grandfather saw me. He trusted me. And now, whether you like it or not, the power you once had over me is gone." Her siblings shifted uncomfortably, their heads bowed. For the first time, they understood they could no longer order her around or laugh at her pain. The balance had changed. Her mother finally whispered, "Adana, please, let us stay. We will respect you." Adana's heart ached, but she nodded slowly. "Then prove it. From now on, if you want a place in this house, you will treat me like family. Not a servant, not a burden. Family." The silence that followed was thick and heavy. They all knew the truth. The girl they had once excluded now held their fate in her hands. And nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning the house felt different. The laughter and arrogance that once filled its walls were gone. Everyone walked carefully, their voices low, as if they were waiting for Adana's next move. She sat in the living room, sunlight spilling across the table where the inheritance papers still lay. Her family gathered around her, their faces heavy with shame. Adana looked at each of them, her eyes calm but firm. "I will not throw you out," she began, her voice steady. "But if you want to stay here, things must change. From today, you will acknowledge me as the owner of this house. You will respect me, and you will contribute to taking care of this estate. No one will live here for free, not even you." Her words fell like stones in the silence. Her siblings shifted uncomfortably, avoiding her gaze. Her father opened his mouth, but for once, he had no argument. Her mother lowered her head, her pride swallowed by the weight of reality. One of her brothers whispered, "Adana, we understand." His voice cracked, and the others nodded slowly. They knew they had no choice. The power had shifted, and fighting her would only bring more humiliation. Adana's heart hurt to see them like this, but she reminded herself of the many nights she cried because of their cruelty. Now life had turned the tables, and she was the one in control. From that day on, everything changed. Her siblings, who once mocked her, now asked for her permission before making decisions. Her mother, who once ordered her around, began helping with chores without complaint. Even her father, though bitter, learned to keep silent when his temper rose. The once proud family now lived under the authority of the daughter they had cast aside. And though Adana's heart still carried scars, she knew this was justice, poetic justice. The very people who had excluded her now depended on her for a roof over their heads. Life had given her the voice they once tried to silence, and every day they were reminded of it. Months passed, and the story of Adana spread through the town like wildfire. The once quiet girl, who used to hide in the shadows of her family, was no longer the same. She had taken her grandfather's estate and breathed new life into it. The old house was repaired and painted fresh, the compound neat and welcoming. She expanded the farmland, hiring workers and turning it into one of the most productive fields in Bear. People who once overlooked her now came seeking her advice and respect. Everywhere she went, neighbors greeted her warmly. Adana, the strong one, they called her. She was invited to community meetings, praised for her wisdom and humility. The same people who once pitied her now admired her. She had transformed her pain into power, and her scars into strength. Her family, however, lived quietly in the background. The arrogance and pride they once carried had disappeared. No more mocking, no more laughter at her expense. They lived under her roof, careful with their words, knowing the world had seen their downfall. They could not erase the shame of how they treated her, and they knew they never would. One bright afternoon, Adana walked through the compound in a beautiful dress, her head held high. Children played nearby, workers greeted her respectfully, and neighbors whispered as she passed. "Look at her," one said softly. "The girl they rejected now owns everything." Her family watched from the veranda, silent, their eyes filled with regret. But Adana didn't look back. She walked forward with confidence, her heart stronger than ever. The girl they left behind had become the woman who stood ahead of them all, and nothing could take that victory away from her.